Welcome to another episode of Famitsu Check It Out. My name is Paul Smith, and we're going to be looking at the newest issue of Famitsu that we have here. As you can see on the front cover, Go Sega 60th Anniversary. That's what we're going to be talking about mainly this week, is the 60th anniversary of Sega Corporation. So you may have noticed that this is going up a day late. My son has had a fever for the last few days, so yeah, wasn't really feeling good. But this morning he woke up and yeah, he was happy and running around and smiling and laughing and stuff like that. So I thought that I'd record this video now. So yeah, let's check out this issue of Famitsu. As we can see on the screen, we have Sega Hatan Shiro over here. And then I guess Sega Shiro over here. I don't know where this name comes from. Sega Hatan Shiro. And then we have Sega Ta Sanshiro. I don't know. So let's figure it out. Yeah, I wasn't really much of a Sega guy when I grew up. My neighbor had a Genesis, and it was cool. You know, if I would have had one, I probably would have enjoyed the hell out of it. Genesis always seemed to me like more of a sports system. And at the time of the Genesis, Sega was really killing it in America, but in the rest of the world, they weren't really doing as great. In Japan, especially, I've always heard that the Sega Genesis, really didn't take off there. It was all about people being on the NES and then switching over to the SNES. So I think Sega Genesis was more for kind of hardcore people, or probably just people spattered here and there. But I think the story is that Sega had different publishing wings in America and Japan, and maybe even Europe. I'm not sure about Europe, but I know that the publishers in Japan and America were different, and because of its popularity in the United States, that gave Sega America much more power when it came to decision making on what games should come out here and what games they didn't want and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's part of the reason why sports games became so huge over here. And I think it also is one of the reasons why it led to Sega's demise overall, is because they kind of had like a split focus. So yeah, so let's check out this issue of Famitsu. What do we got here? Here is the top 30 games. Let's see if we can move the camera up a little bit. Let's see how that works. Probably not going to be. Getting more up and down, not so much. That's good enough. We'll just call that good. Yeah. So let me turn up my computer fan a little bit. So here's the top 30. Maybe I will just fold this over like we've done in the past. Yeah, here's the top 30 for the week. We have Animal Crossing is number 1. Ring Fit Adventure is number 2. It's holding tight there at number 2. That's pretty cool. Number 3, Splatoon 2, which is up from like number 5 and 6. So yeah, Splatoon 2 has done quite a job of coming back up to the ranks. Over here, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and number 5 is Minecraft for the Nintendo Switch, up from number 8. It had lost a couple of spots. I think part of the reason for this is that I don't think that there are any new games. Okay, there's 2 new games that have come onto the list here, but they're not really that important. Number 6 is Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's quite a big jump from it was number 3 last week. So yeah, I think I've talked about this before that I don't really have any evidence behind it, just besides just seeing Japanese games and seeing Japanese game stores. But it seems to me that Japanese people will buy a game, completely play through it, and then just put it away. And they tend to do that pretty close to release. And so for the Final Fantasy Remake, I think that's kind of what we're seeing here, is that people have played it. They've taken it to their local recycle store, their place that they're going to sell the game at. And they're trading it in. And then somebody else is probably buying it used, and those used numbers aren't showing up here. And so, yeah, we do see kind of a steep decline in games, except for Nintendo games, which people tend to buy and keep forever. So, number 7 here is Super Smash Brothers. Number 8 is Brain Training. Number 9 is Super Mario Party, and number 10 is Pokemon Sword and Shield. So yeah, the top 10 list is almost completely dominated by Switch games. Only Final Fantasy VII Remake is edging it out. So the new games that we have here is actually Phantasy Star Online 2. Cloud Episode 6 Deluxe Package. And so I'm not sure how this is being packaged. I would need to go to the store and actually look. But the Switch version of Phantasy Star Online is called a cloud version of the game. What that means is that the client isn't that huge, and so they're pulling a lot of stuff off the internet. I'm not sure if it really is a cloud or if they're just pulling things and deleting things as needed. But it looks like they're adding a new episode into that MMO, and they're selling a packaged version of it. I wouldn't be surprised if this packaged version is just going to be a code, because it does need to be online, and so they know that if you're playing it that you're going to be online. But who knows? Yeah. Like I said, I would need to actually check out the package. But on this top 10 list, the new one is number 11, which is the PlayStation 4 version of that Phantasy Star Online Episode 6. And then the Nintendo Switch version is down here at 23. I would assume that people are just wanting better graphics for the game that they're playing. And it's been on PlayStation much longer than it's been on Switch over here. So that kind of does it for our top 30 games. We can see here that actually Last of Us Remastered is up at 18. Some people are buying that in anticipation for the new game coming out. What else? Animal Crossing 3DS is still on here. That enjoyed a increase in sales during the release of the Switch version, and it's been able to stay kind of at that 25-24 position for a couple of months now. I find that pretty interesting. I don't know if it's parents who are saying, well, you can get this one. This one's just as good for the thing that you already have. We're not going to buy you a new thing. Meaning that their kids already got a 3DS and they're not going to buy a Switch. Or what exactly is happening there? Yeah, interesting to see that it's on there. Uh, Resident Evil 3 is down here at the bottom of the list. So there are a few PlayStation 4 games. We see Trials of Mana, Grand Theft Auto 5 has gone up a few spots. It was 1921. Dragon Quest 10, which is the online MMO Dragon Quest game, just got a new package version. I think it was last week. 514. Yeah, so that would have been, well, almost a month ago, I guess. Monster Hunter World, Iceborne Master Edition over here. So there are a few PlayStation 4 games, but they're kind of few and far between, especially mixed in with only PlayStation 4 games. And I don't think it really needs to be said, but the Xbox One is nowhere to be seen. So kind of sad. Over here we have the top 30 most anticipated games. Top of that list is Tales of Arise. Tales is a huge series in Japan, so that shouldn't surprise anyone. Zelda Breath of the Wild. This is the new game that they have yet to title. So here's that game. Over here we have Bravely Default 2, Ghosts of Tsushima, Cyberpunk 2077, Bayonetta 3, the new Shin Megami Tensei game. Yeah, and some other stuff. Last of Us is down to number 9. Looks like people's desire or anticipation for that game is decreasing the closer it gets to release. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Probably a bad thing, but who knows. A new edition, we have the Paper Mario Origami King and the Namcot collection. I've never understood what the difference between Namco and Namcot is. I'm gonna have to do a little research into that and see exactly what that is. I know that Namcot is a name that is predominantly used in Japan because that same collection in the United States is called the Namco collection. So I'm not really sure why Namcot is what they've chosen over here. If that was the original naming of it and maybe something was dropped off in a translation or something like that. No idea. But okay, over here we have the top 10 rookies. These are games that have never had these are all original properties, no sequels or anything like that. As always, number 1 Ushido, number 2 Ghost of Tsushima, number 3 Cyberpunk 2077, number 4 the game that I never remember how to read the kanji, Tensho no Sakuna Hime or something like that. Tenkyo Sakuna Hime, I'm not sure. Elden Ring number 6, Genshin number 5, Sakuna Hime for PlayStation 4, Stellaris. I'm not sure what Stellaris is. Oh, Stellaris. Over here you can see that. I actually played Stellaris quite a bit yesterday. As my son was sick, I needed something that I could just kind of like play for a while, pause, come back to. And yeah, I really kind of enjoyed it. I'm not much of a space combat kind of person, and so I was a little scared off. But then I found out that there really isn't much space combat. It's really just a Civ game in space. So yeah, and much more of the exploration slash politics end of Civ and not so much the action battling parts of Civ, which was also really nice yesterday. I needed something that I could just click stuff and not really focus too much of my brain power on. It was good to kind of read some of the story bits and bobs here and there, and yeah, it was nice. It felt good. So yeah, Stellaris is number 8. Interesting. Moving on. What is this? Ghost Parade. You. I'm not sure. Some game called Ghost Parade. Oh, I think I read something about that. Kind of Indonesian game. Interesting. Okay. Next one we're going to talk about for a little bit is the Pokemon Sword and Shield expansion. Yeah, so Daisen. Yeah, so this is the one that's coming out soon. So Yoroi no Koto, and then Kamuri no It's again. What is this? How many? I think it's like Crown of the Icy Plains. And then this is this Armor of the something island. I'm not sure what Ko is. Yeah. But yeah, so here's the game. Got some new stuff. This says 6 reasons why you should play it. They're adding some gym challenges. Adding more to the story mode. They're adding some new adventures to Gararu Chiho. New Dimaxes. The world area. You will be moved by the new what do you call it? New tundras. What are they called? Phylums? Whatever. The new kinds of areas that they're adding. You can work together with people all over the world. So those are the reasons that they're given why you should play it. Yeah, here's some more information. Here's the new characters coming for this first pack. You have these 6 new characters. So these 3 are coming to Pokemon Sword, and these 2 are coming to Shield. So yeah, choose accordingly. Here's more information just about the story and what they're adding. New animals, or new Pokemon, I guess is what we should call them. Some more Pokemon. Yeah, Pokemon are coming. New Dimax are coming as well. That's these over here. So, and then here's a little bit of information about the second pack that's coming out. these three characters. I wonder if they're splitting things up between the versions on this second pack. I'm sure there's tons of people out there that already know that information. Yeah, I'm not a huge Pokemoner. So yeah, it looks good. Actually, looking at that article has made me want to go and buy Pokemon. Maybe when I get my Abe money, buying Pokemon will be the thing that I buy for myself. Over here, Remnant from the Ashes. This has been out in the States for a while. It's coming out to Japan. I saw some people playing through this, and I thought it looked pretty good. This is the one I'm most interested in, is Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. I love this game on the GameCube, and I think I'll be buying this day one for Switch. Funnily enough, over here it says that they've decided the release date, which is the 27th of August. That's at least in Japan. I would think it's probably a worldwide release, but who knows. So it says this year's summer. Um, let's make memories of you becoming a member in the caravan or something like that. But it's coming out 8/27, which is the end of summer, like a couple of days before summer ends. In Japan, at least, kids go back to school beginning of September. So, yeah, at least they're not talking about kids. Now, this magazine isn't aimed at kids, though, either. So, but, I mean, adults don't really have much of a summer as well, unless we're just talking about, like, summer of the mind. Like, being in summer and hearing cicadas and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're getting at there. But, so this is coming to Android, iOS, PlayStation 4, and Switch. And the article mentioned, and I think I remember hearing it before also, that this is going to be crossplay. So if you do get this game on Switch or PlayStation 4, you're able to then also play it on your phone when you're kind of running around. Now, I don't know if that means that you have to buy a whole new version or anything like that, or if once you buy it somewhere, it kind of just opens it up on the other versions. I don't think that's probably correct, but I would assume that's probably the way it works with the phones. I mean, I'm not going to want to buy a $50 game on Switch and then need to pay something else to play it on my phone. That seems kind of stupid. So I'm wondering if the crossplay is like you buy the Switch or PlayStation 4 version, and then you're going to get the phone client for free or for some kind of like an upcharge or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to go for the upcharge route, but who knows? Yeah, so I did read a little bit of this yesterday while I was waiting at the pharmacist for the medicine for my son, and there's going to be some crafting. It looks like. Yeah, over here they go into crossplay. I didn't get this far yet, but I'll read a little bit more of that and get some more information so I can talk a little bit more about it next time. I'm not sure if this game was maybe more popular in the West or what, but I'm surprised that it hasn't been on the most anticipated lists, because I love that game. That game was the height of the GameCube for me. It was probably pretty soon after I bought it, and I had just signed up for GameFly, and I was getting games through GameFly, and it was one of the first games that I got through GameFly. And I remember getting that, and what is the wrestling game? Ultimate Muscle. I remember getting Ultimate Muscle. Two awesome games, and I remember playing the shit out of Ultimate Muscle and really enjoying that. And then somewhere in the middle of Ultimate Muscle, also starting Crystal Chronicles and doing a good amount of time on that just in like one day or something like that. And I was like, oh god, I gotta finish Ultimate Muscle before I even attempt to continue on in this game. And so I did put a ton of time back into Ultimate Muscle, sent that back, and then just powered through Crystal Chronicles and ended up getting, I think it was, what was it? I think it was Beautiful Joe next or something like that. Played that a little bit and then just immediately went out and bought Beautiful Joe. So, okay, here we are with the Sega 60th anniversary feature. They're showing off the Game Gear Micro. Something I didn't know about the Micro was that each one of the colors, you're getting different games. So the Micro was announced maybe last week, a couple weeks ago. I'm not really sure, but yeah. That. So over here, we see the old mascot. I can't, Segaga or something like that. Yeah, his face even became somewhat popular in America for a little bit because it was during that time when Sega was just really cool, and especially for someone like me who read EGM and flipped through other video game magazines at the time. Sega in Japan. Now, this was after the Genesis. Sega in Japan seemed really cool. Like they were what cool was. And I think that through this magazine, you'll see that Sega was pretty cool the whole time. It's just that they made some big fumbles that ended up costing them in the end. So yeah, that guy Sega Hatanshiro, he was the old mascot. He was on a bunch of commercials. Even now, if you go on YouTube, you can find those old early 90s, early to mid 90s, early to late 90s, I suppose. Maybe mid to late 90s is probably better. Yeah, you can find those commercials there and see his face appear, especially with the Saturn. He was the big guy, so I guess the Saturn would have been, well, we'll find out later. And then this is his son. They're both on Japanese TV. They're both people that Japanese people know just by sight. So he maybe... I'll need to read this more, but I would assume that he's probably much more recognizable as an actor to Japanese people, and of course to Americans he would be, or Western people, he would be much more recognizable as a mascot for Sega. His son, Western people probably have never even seen, and his son is very popular here as a just a talent, an announcer, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So this talks about the early history of Sega. Sega started in 1960. So yeah, this is the 20th anniversary we're at right now. They started by doing like Pong machines, different like home game stuff, and then the SG-1000. This probably would have been right at the same time that Nintendo was popping up, and Nintendo was doing the exact same things. It was doing electronic-y new type toys for the house, and then it was also planning on the NES, or in Japan, Famicom. And then SG-1000 was the first console that Sega put out in Japan, and it never came to the United States, I believe. But yeah, I think it was moderately popular. Let's see. Hang On was 1985. They made the UFO catcher, as they call it in Japan, 1985. So I'm sure that was a huge addition. I can't believe the UFO catcher has been around for that long. That's crazy. And they're still in arcades all around this country, and people still love taking their shot at UFO catcher games. So, um, what is this? This thing, 360-degree rotating game. Yeah, let's move on. These are all things like what they've been doing, like why Sega is great. I'm not sure what this kanji is. I need to figure out what that kanji is, but it says Mega Drive version of Tetris, so something to do with the Mega Drive version of Tetris. Came out in 1988. Trying to think if maybe if they beat Nintendo to market with Tetris. Not really sure. All right, let's move on. And yeah, here's the Sega Taro guy. This is the commercial campaign that I remember him from. Other information about Sonic characters, stuff like that. What is this? Yeah, they had like amusement. They started doing their own like arcades and stuff at some point. They also like started doing like some VR stuff. They started doing these arcade card games, which are quite popular in Japan. We've never seen them in the States, at least not in Omaha, Nebraska. I've never seen them. But you would buy like trading card type things, and you would go to the arcade and use those trading cards as kind of like ways to power up what you're playing. This is a version of a okay, this is a soccer game. So you would be buying the soccer players that you want on your team, and then going against the computer or another player to win. One of the other big ones is horse racing. I'm not really sure what the cards would be there, if you're just getting better horse racing cards, that kind of thing. Yeah. So the cards kind of looked like this, and there was cameras that would read these kind of like barcodes to make sure that you had the card that would appear on the screen. Down here in 2005, we see the addition of the Yakuza series. I think that was probably one of the modern huge steps for Sega to keep Sega quite relevant. After the Dreamcast died, I think Sega was kind of floundering for a little bit, wondering what's next for them. And Yakuza definitely picked them up quite a bit, especially in Japan. Those games have always been huge sellers in Japan, much more so than the United States. Only recently, since the maybe PlayStation 3 era, even then, yeah, I would say the late PlayStation 3 era and beginning of the PlayStation 4 era is when those games really picked up steam in the United States. Hatsune Miku started in 2009. I thought it would probably be earlier than that. So they changed their headquarters, it says here. Interesting. Oh, that was probably the Atlas buyout. Yeah. So here's some information about what they were doing within the arcades from 1966 to 81. Different arcade games that they were doing. Monaco GP. Everybody had a Pong game at that time, so they were doing a Pong game. This is interesting, this periscope thing. That looks like more of a machine. Yeah, game machine. it looks like more of a machine game than it is a video game. So maybe we would call that like a penny arcade type thing. Um, yeah, over here we have the Sega Game Centers. That was huge for Sega and put Sega in kind of a lot of neighborhoods around the country. Mainly, I think probably starting in like Tokyo and maybe Kyoto. I'm not really sure about Kyoto though. Um, from 82 until 91 is when they really started going kind of crazy with their arcade machines and making like these full scale like automobiles that you were like sitting in, and the machines would then move around quite a bit. I think it was this Afterburner one. I'm not really sure. One of them moved a hell of a lot. Maybe this is the one that I'm thinking of, is the R360. But yeah, there were some of them that were moving, yeah, a lot. Maybe it was this Space Harrier one that I'm thinking of. I remember playing Hang On a lot when I was a kid. What else? Fantasy Zone, Tetris, Columns. So they had Tetris in 88 and Columns in 90. I wonder if they maybe like lost the license to Nintendo, and that would have brought out the Columns. I remember playing the shit out of Columns on Game Gear. From 92 to 2001, they got into 3D games. Virtua Fighter was a huge addition for them. That kind of put them on the map as being kind of one of the preeminent developers and publishers that were like pushing the bounds with games. Like, how far could we get things? We look back at these 3D polygons now and think, man, those things look like shit. But at the time, I mean, you were watching Reboot on Saturday morning cartoons at that time, and Reboot was showing you video graphics that computers couldn't even do. And as a kid watching that, I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this is what computers are going to look like. Things are going to look like really sick. And Sega was taking that idea of those 3D 3D polygons and putting them into games, and then bringing those games out to arcades. And the thing is that they controlled insanely well. You know, as we look back on them now, they look like butt now, but if we go back and play them, they still play fantastic. You can see the lineage of the latest, what is it, Virtua Fighter 4, Virtua Fighter 5, all the way back to that. And you can see that, like, yeah, control has always been something that they knew that they needed to get right. It's just that time has added the looking like buttness to those games. Yeah, over here we have the start of like some of their laser gun games, all these different 3D games over here as well. Virtual On, Virtual Cop. Yeah, they were naming everything Virtua back then. Crazy Taxi, House of the Dead. House of the Dead was huge. I would like to get a number on how much money Sega made with House of the Dead. I think that number would be quite high. 2002 onward, you can see that in Japan they're going more for these like sit down things that you're going to spend a lot of time at. You're almost getting into the territory of them being like gambling machines, but you're not gambling. You're putting in your money. You're getting a certain amount of time to play something, whether it's a full football soccer match or what. I'm not really sure. I never tried any of these, but yeah, you're getting some time to play something and then you're done. So there's nothing that you're really winning off of it. And I'm going to need to read this, but I'm not sure where you're getting the cards. And maybe if you're actually getting the cards from those machines, in that sense, maybe it is more like gambling, where if the machines are like kicking out cards that you're going to use next time. Yeah. But like I said, I'm not really sure. This game here which we actually did get in Rinky Dink, Omaha, Nebraska. And this did punch out a card, but that was a card that was much more like save data. And so I remember playing the shit out of this game at Family Fun Center on 72nd and Dodge. Initial D arcade game. I would go, and that would be the first game I played, the third, fifth, eighth game I would play every time I went. Like, I would always keep coming back to that game. And I had one of the cards that I could save my driver information on. And man, I love that game. That was such a great game. And then they came out with like 50 others after that. I don't know if they got them in the arcades in Omaha, Nebraska. I think I remember maybe 2 different versions. Maybe there was only one. I can't remember. But yeah, great game. Fantastic. We're seeing some other things over here. I think these are like the systems of the drives in their arcade games. My. What is My? I think My is one of those touchscreen games where you're doing what do you call it? Rhythm games. So, what else? A couple other arcade games here. What else? Virtual reality type stuff. This is interesting. I think I've seen this at like museums and stuff, but it's where you have like sand, wet sand and stuff like that, and you can change the elevation of the sand that's in a box, and then they use that to show like an elevation chart, like projected down onto it. And so you can kind of see it here in this picture. Too bad my camera kind of sucks. But like you can see in the valleys that there's water because that's below sea level. So this is kind of like an educational thing that you would have at museums and stuff. And I guess I didn't know that they came up with that, or they were one of the places that came up with that. So this is consumer hardware. SG-1000, SG-1002, SC-3000. These are going to be their first computers that they're going to have in the homes. Like I said, I don't think any of these came outside of Japan. Here's some of the hot games for those. This is what came to America, the Master System, Kaigai Kata. So it's the first one that came out in the United States and other places outside the United States. Over here, the Sega Mark III is what they called it in Japan, I believe. But I think it was the same exact system. Yeah. And Sega has always been a huge fan of add-ons to their machine. So you'll see here that this has a FM tuner or something like that. Okay, FM sound unit, so you're adding like a higher quality sound that you would have to pay for. They're like as a second sale kind of thing. This game had my cards, which were a little bit like hue cards for the Turbo Graphics, and then gold cartridges, which you would then put into the actual system. I never had a Master System, so I've never actually seen how the thing works. I never even probably saw a Master System until much later in my life. Yeah, I probably would have been like 15 or 16 before I even knew what a Master System was. I think that's true for many Americans. I think most people just thought that Sega started with the Genesis. I remember some of the people from EGM, Shane Bettenhausen, talked about how one of his friends on his block actually had a Sega Master System. So uh, Americans bought them, I think. It's just that I didn't know anybody that did. Now, the Master System did have a lot of arcade games on it, and that's what I think Sega was always after. Is they were trying to get a machine that did arcade quality games, so they could keep their arcade thing going while also having at-home versions of them. And so, Fantasy Zone, that's an arcade thing. Space Harrier, arcade thing. Fantasy Star isn't an arcade thing, but this is where it debuted, was on the Master System. So, and then Alex Kidd, not an arcade thing, but that was their mascot at the time. Here we have the Mega Drive, and just on this sheet, you can see how much. Yeah, how many different add-ons there were. Here they have this. This is called the Mega Drive Tower. So this is as tall as you could get the thing. Yeah, using all of the components. And so there was the Mega CD, the Sega CD. They had a modem in Japan. Mega adapter. Oh, this is so you could play Master System games on your um, Genesis. All these different name changes are driving me insane. The Mega CD2, we got both of these in America. This is the one I have down here. There's the Sega Tap. You can plug more controllers into your Sega. Over here, they had a karaoke machine in Japan that would run off CDs. Over here, this is the Wonder Mega. So that was a CD system. You could also do the karaoke using that. That was probably one of the huge selling points for that, is that people didn't want to buy all this shit just to do the karaoke. And so they came out with a much more compact one that was for people that just wanted to do karaoke. Karaoke being huge over here. And then the 32X down here. And then here are some of the top games for that. Top 16. We see Luna, the Silver Star series. Puyo Puyo. Sonic, of course. Bare Knuckle 2. Is it called Bare Knuckle in America? I can't remember. What else? Virtual Racing, Gunstar Heroes, Super Harrier 2, Super Monaco GP. Yeah, so they were bringing a lot of the stuff that you'd see in the arcade, and that made it something that you wanted. You're like, hey, I'm spending all this money in the arcade. Why don't I spend that money and just get one that I could take home with me? And it wasn't until the Saturn that they actually that idea came to fruition. I see the Saturn over here. These are the ROMs and RAMs that came with the game, or didn't come with it. You had to buy all this shit separately. Trust me. Over here we have all the different versions of the Saturn. Sega was really big on making different versions of their consoles, just as much as they were interested in adding add-on taps. I've never seen this before, this virtual stick. So this is for people that are really insane about playing Virtual Fighter at home. They had a light gun for the Saturn, twin stick for probably Virtual On or something like that. Yeah. And then this was the controller that came with Knights. They had a modem that came out with the system. Yeah. Top games over here, we're seeing Virtual Fighter 2, Nights into Dreams. So Sakura Taisen, that was a huge game in Japan that's recently become somewhat popular in America. Thunder Force 4. Grandia was out on Saturn, I believe, before it came out on PlayStation. So, what else? Enemy Zero. Trying to think of the guy that did that. He died not too long ago. Shit, I forget his name. Cold Sept first appeared on the Saturn. What else? Sega Rally Championship. Vampire Hunter. J-League Soccer. Yeah, down here you can see that they got some, this one especially, some VR type games on that system. And then over here we get into the Dreamcast. These are all the different editions of the Dreamcast that came out. They got some pretty cool looking ones there. These are all the accessories that came out for the Dreamcast. VMUs were awesome. Microphone that came with Seaman, Rumble Pack. They were one of the first consoles, I think probably the first console to have a camera on their console. I mean, you could buy it separately. The broadband adapter, which I have and I've heard is quite expensive. Dreamcast keyboard, I got that. I always wanted this controller and the fishing games that it used. Light gun, and then the maracas for Samba de Amigo. I remember Samba de Amigo being one of the games that, like, you just thought, man, Sega is just out of their fucking minds, man. Like, look at the shit that Sega is doing. And I think that was kind of the story with Sega on the Dreamcast, is that they fumbled so hard, especially in America, with the Saturn, that when Dreamcast came out and you saw Seaman, you saw Samba de Amigo, you saw Space Channel 5, you were like, wow, Sega's fucking cool, man. Like, I think it was something that you didn't notice in the Genesis and the Saturn eras as an American. Because the games that came out in America for the Saturn were pretty crappy. Clockwork Knight, I mean, it's an okay game, but I mean, we didn't get any of the cool stuff. Like, all the cool stuff stayed in Japan. Like, what was it? The first Marvel vs. Capcom that came with the memory pack. I think it was Marvel vs. Capcom, but X-Men vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. X. I can't remember, but I mean, that game was awesome and it looked gorgeous on that system. Like, you were playing an arcade game. Like, we never got any of that really cool stuff over here, and so we didn't get to see Sega as being cool on the Saturn. But when the Dreamcast came over, that's when Sega was fucking cool. Phantasy Star Online, one of the first huge online games that, yeah, tons of people played. Code Veronica, Jet Set Radio. I mean, just cool. Crazy Taxi, yeah. And then over here, they're talking about the Game Gear. They probably know that the Game Gear really doesn't need that much mentioning. And then over here, you can see that the Game Boy Micros that they're selling. That's cool that they're coming out with a big window to increase the size of the teeny tiny window that it comes with. Here's this is showing you the different colors and like what games they're coming with. I don't want to go through that just because we're running out of time. Yeah, interview with the COO of Sega. Interview with the COO. Is he also COO of Sega? The guy behind Yakuza and a million other Sega games, who's had a lot of work done to his face. Here's an interview with the two Taros or Shiros. Here's some what do you call it? Survey that they did. Yeah. Here's the indie corner. They're talking about the game Ruiner. I played a little bit of this and it was okay. Yeah. As a twin stick shooter, yeah, it was okay. And the story was kind of cool, but yeah. Here's another update on that Ninjala game. I did read a little bit of this, and yeah, it's something that I think has the potential to really blow up, especially since it's going to be free. Yeah, I think this could be almost like a Splatoon killer, like especially with these graphics and it being free and Splatoon just kind of like being kind of dead right now. Yeah, I think it could be interesting. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. We're gonna come back to my favorite part, the snacks. Do you want a stuff? No, that's not stuffed. Oh, it's one of those pullback anemones. Anemones. Anemone. I think that's how you say it. Calendar for upcoming. Here are the cross reviews. Golf with your friends. 7s and 8s. I didn't know that was Team 17. Cardboard box mini cars. I might have to look into this. This looks kind of interesting. It didn't get really good scores, but it looks kind of interesting. What the Golf, and then Neocab. I really want to play Neocab. Neocab is something that I've looked forward to for a while. And that's it. And of course, in the back, where they talk about like the actual like industry, they're talking about PlayStation 5. So, all right, snacks. Let's get through the snacks kind of quickly. What do we got here? Banana melon pan. Melon pan is like one of the greatest creations in bread history. Um, they're like they're kind of like those Mexican breads, those round ones that have like the sweetness on top. It's kind of like a baked on kind of sugary kind of thing that they put like checkerboard design in. Melon pan is the same thing, except they call it melon here because melons have that kind of checkerboard design. Um, Over here we have from Mini Stop Ebi Bowl. So these are going to be like Ebi or shrimp fish sticks, and they're going to come with tartar sauce. Um, so there's a cream pie here. Over here, Family Mart does these things called frappes. So they've built these before about 3 years ago or so. Japanese convenience stores didn't have any fresh coffee. Now in America, that's strange. Like every convenience store has pots of coffee that are going all the time. People come in and get coffee all the time, but in Japan, they just never had that. And so recently, they've built kind of these single serve coffee machines that they grind the beans, and then the beans are poured over. One thing I do like over here is that you can either get a iced coffee or you can get a hot coffee. And yeah, I get both of them, and they're really good. I mean, sometimes the quality of the coffee is a little shit, but for a simple just stopping at the gas or stopping at the convenience store kind of thing, it's a good deal. And at Family Mart, their machine also will spit out like I think it's just hot water or maybe it's hot milk. I'm not really sure. But it spits it out into this iced thing, and then you're meant to just like stir it around with they give you a big honking straw, and yeah, it makes a frappe, and it's usually pretty good. So Mini Stop also has this peach parfait. So it's going to be ice cream and peaches. Over here, onigiri. What is it? Shrimp and mushroom onigiri. Yeah. Uh, Down here we have thick soup with Oh, it's from Daidaite. So Daidaite is a chain of ramen shops that started in the Kansai area. Um, Down here we have a thick miso flavored ramen. We have a soy and pork bone ramen, and I saw this the other day, and I want to get this. It's a black sesame max yakisoba. So going to be a ton of black sesame flavor in there. Um, Over here we have um, so this is made out of soybeans, but it's supposed to taste like fried chicken. Down here we have mentaiko, which is a kind of fish egg. So fish egg flavored potato sticks, and then down here, what is it? Salted. What is it? Sour plum and salted um, rice crackers. So we just went over our hour. Yeah, this is a big issue, so I don't feel too bad about that. I probably could have spent a little bit more time talking about it. I'm sorry that I rushed through the last part, but um, with a kid that's just getting over being sick, I probably shouldn't be hanging out on doing my podcast for too long. So, yeah, this was, I'd say, a really good issue of Famitsu. A lot of information in here. I'm definitely going to dive into the Sega history in this issue. I really like that. This is the first issue that I can honestly say they're back at their game. They're doing what they should be doing again, and this is a normal issue for me. So I'm happy for that. And like I said, yeah, there's 60 pages of really good information to go through to get my knowledge of Sega history up more. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. My name's Paul Smith, and this has been Famitsu Check It Out. We do this every week. I usually do it on Friday nights in America, Saturday mornings in Japan. But as I said, I had a sick kid, so I had to postpone that a little bit. The archive will probably go up early or later tonight Japanese time, or early tomorrow morning. What else? Yeah, check out all of my social media stuff. My Twitch is OWR Games. Mixer is SOPACHUCO13, SOPACHUCO13. Check me out on Facebook, OWR Games, YouTube, OWR Games. You can check out all the archives on YouTube. On Twitter, OWR Games, and then my personal is SOPACHUCO13, SOPACHUCO13. And yeah, just let me know that you enjoy the show, and if you have any recommendations or things you want me to do, I could even go so far as to like get some of these snacks and bring them in and do a little mukbang on the show. So yeah, we'll catch you again next week for another episode of Famitsu Check It Out. My name's Paul Smith. Thanks for checking things out with me.